start back here in the back. When you finish sharing, just feel free to pass the microphone to another group.
I think we focused on the first prompt, which was, what do you believe is number one challenge with assessing English learners and why? And we mentioned a lot of things, and so I'll just kind of run through that. Probably the ESL teacher is just what I would call multifaceted, because we have to be able to communicate with our classroom teachers and speak their assessment data language. So we have to know in-class TRC, all of that, to be able to bridge to our data with access and explain what those proficiency levels are and explain what those scores mean and how that our students are maybe not at grade level, but they are progressing and growing at an acceptable or an excellent rate. And I think that I said something about having a lot of qualitative data, where I've had a lot of my kids for 4, 5, 6, 7 years, and I know them very, very well. So if you just mention their name, I could tell you exactly what they need, and that's one of the benefits of having kids that long. And I think that's different than a lot of classroom teachers, and
Absolutely.
of course. So,
Okay.
and then I can't remember. No.
She's not gonna say. Tell me who you want the microphone to go to. Nebraska.
Thank you, Laura. We were talking about the first prompt, and what we discussed was how challenging it is for our ELs to really show how much they know about the content, because oftentimes classroom teachers or we don't really understand how to modify the assessments for our ELs. And I feel like we need to really value that formative assessment and how ELs are able to show how much they know about the content based on their proficiency level.
That's great. Who should I pass the microphone to?
Louise?
Okay, closer. Okay. So I'm going to walk over here to Louise across the campground. I have my flashlight, so I'm not going to trip over a rock or step on a snake.
Well, we were talking about the same topic, the first parties. What are the biggest challenges with assessment regarding English learners? And I think that sometimes the way we teach in class, is not representing the way the students are evaluated in formal assessments in the state. So we made modifications. We do some activities that students need to be in class regarding or according to the needs that they have or the lack of competence that they have. But the tests that they take are not, they don't reflect the same activities that we do in the classroom. So why that discrepancy? Why the modified test for this kid that has been modified during the rest of the year? So that's something that we don't understand. Sometimes there is a big challenge, because kids, it's not fair to be evaluated if you haven't been taught in the same way.
¿Quién va a hablar? Who's going to talk next, Luis?
Next.
Okay, I'm walking back across the campground, got my flashlight. Don't want to see any bear, no skunks.
Thank you. Touching on that, is it really loud?
No.
Why are you laughing at me? Touching on that, we were talking about the data part too, and most of us realized we give our ESL students those modifications all year, and then end class comes up, and they're out of luck because we can't read them those questions, we can't do things like that. And so we mentioned, how can we use gradual release effectively? When does that come up? When, I try to do it mid-year, but it's difficult when they're used to that up until that point. How can we do that so that our kids are prepared when it comes, and it may be EOGs. I'm just speaking from my perspective in class. what do we do so that they are prepared and they don't fail because they've been used to those accommodations?
Who's gonna go next?
They're looking awful quiet over there.
They're looking awful quiet over here. It's because it's a campground. There are rules about noise. You have to have quiet hour from like 9 to 7. I mean 9 p.m. to 7 a.m.
We said the same thing that other groups have already said, and the fact that we use a lot of differentiation in our teaching styles in the classroom, both in the ESL and the content room, but then when kids are assessed, it's all multiple choice. And so you're not getting a true representation of what the child has learned throughout the school year. We also talked about the fact that a lot of our teachers, when we do our SEP, student educational plans with the accommodations and modifications, sometimes that's not really valued a lot in the regular classroom until the EOG comes up. And then it's like, what accommodations, will the kid have on this test? But they haven't been provided those accommodations throughout the school year.
Who's gonna go next? Oh, good. I can just there.
Good morning. We talked about the challenges with assessing English learners, and we discussed several, but one of them was assessing speaking. There's a lot of already created reading comprehension assessments and writing assessments, but personally I haven't found a lot of speaking assessments. And also to go in and encourage classroom teachers to assess speaking. A lot of them don't have practice with that or don't have experience with that, so that's a challenge. And sometimes we think of it has to be one-on-one, and Lisa shared a really great idea about with her students, they create skits. They have to write a script and then they act it out, so they get to look at their writing and assess that, but also assess their speaking in groups when they're acting out things. So I thought that was a really great idea.
Cool. Who's gonna talk next? You guys? So as I'm walking across the campground, I'm thinking about the speaking piece, and I'm saying to myself, how can we also help people understand that pronunciation isn't necessarily the same thing as fluency? Because you could have a person with fluent levels of vocabulary who still pronounces things with an accent, and that's okay. It's kind of actually really cool if it's, a cool accent. Aren't they all cool?
We talked a lot about the first one, and really sort of the nexus of the first and the third. We brought up a lot of the same things that you guys mentioned about difficulties with assessment. One of the things we talked about that hasn't been addressed as much was when you're gathering the data from your assessment, that the challenge in interpreting what the data means from an English language learner, not necessarily being able to tell if, so most of us in this group are in secondary, though I think it probably applies to any grade level. It could, if a student didn't do very well on an assessment, was it a gap of prior knowledge? Or was it because they're a language learner? Or is it behavioral? Did they not give it their best that day? And it adds another layer of difficulty. What's already hard sometimes to interpret the data that you get from assessments adds that extra layer of not being sure what is really contributing to. Is it that I need to reteach? Or do I need to start reteaching prior knowledge or the lesson, or is it a language subjective that we need to do?
Right. Or did he have breakfast that day?
Yeah.
Or did he have a bad night because he didn't have fun at home, or all kinds of things, absolutely. Or had to work. Yeah. Okay, I think we have, did you guys go already or not? Okay, so we have you guys in, okay. Walking across the campground, looking for skunks.
Yeah, there's some.
They're everywhere.
Yeah. So the first question did prompt a lot of discussion. The second question, how do you determine every day what you'll be teaching, content and language, and then what drives your instruction? And as a literacy specialist, and going into a learning space with SIOP background to support Spanish immersion kids, right? My paradigm is, I look at what kids do every day as readers and writers, and I have my overarching goals, but then I respond in real time to what I need to do with them tomorrow, as far as strategy instruction, as far as writing, where they need to be day to day. But then my friend here said, sometimes that'll set a kid back. Sometimes in developing language, kids need to move forward. Keep teaching like we used to do. We
Yes.
plan for the week. Don't alter your plans. Keep going with that weekly plan. And for ELs, that benefits them because then they put more pieces together and, oh, I get it now.
Yes.
So the example that you gave was inflectional endings.
Like, I used to teach Spanish. I would start with AR verbs, and after you do ser, which is a really common verb, you would teach AR verbs. Well, I would have some kids not understand subject pronouns, so they didn't know I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they in English. But I didn't really worry about that until we got all the way to the end of the verbs, because in Spanish it's a pattern that repeats. So when I got all the way to the end, if I still had some that hadn't had that aha moment, then I would go back and reteach. But I would continue and try to get them on board with me, because I'm one of those people. I don't get it the first time, but then if you do something similar the second time, it's like, oh, now I get why we did this. So sometimes it's detrimental to them if you stop and you just hound, reteach. Whereas if you were to keep going, they might have their own aha moment that's more significant than if you were to reteach.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and the other thing, to piggyback on the literacy aspect, depending on the language and depending on where the student's native levels of language are, meaning did they learn to read in school or at home before they came to you, reading acquisition and literacy acquisition is different in different languages. So, I'm thinking about Spanish versus English and the syllabic connection in Spanish. Things are chunked by syllables. So when you start teaching at the phonemic level, dog, that's confusing for some students because it's not a phonemic pattern. Okay, one last.
We talked about question number 1, that our challenge was with assessing the students, because we just noticed like a huge disconnect in our classroom, because we knew that the students maybe had it in their head and they could show understanding in the classroom, but they couldn't like show you on paper or be able to tell you, but you knew they were kind of getting it. And we also noticed that maybe one day they could show you they understood what you taught, but then the next day they couldn't. So it was just really inconsistent, and we didn't feel like maybe their report card grades really reflected what they truly know. So we just noticed that disconnect.
That's a whole nother workshop, right? Yeah, grades, authentic grading. So yes, all very poignant ideas, and I think everybody said things that were different but very parallel, and kind of on the same line of thinking, the same continuum. We know we have a lot of challenges with this assessment process. Imagine too, before we get ready to leave the campground, which is always a sad day for me, unless it's been raining, then I'm like, let's go. Think about all of the things that you learned yesterday and the day before. And imagine if Andrea came in this morning and just handed you all a piece of paper that was written in Hungarian, and that was your test. You know a lot about co-teaching. Can you express it yet in another language? She's going to get an A in the class because she's biliterate. So connecting what kids know to how they can actually demonstrate it is really important. Okay, feel free to go back to your table.